Welcome to the lab. This is the Big Scientist channel where we explore the why so you know how. Today, we're exploring the why behind delicious, moist, and soft chocolate chip muffins so you know how to whip these up in your own kitchen. Make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell to stay up to date on all the delicious science. Now, let's get into it. So the first thing you want to do for these muffins is to go ahead and combine your dry ingredients. So that's our flour, our all-purpose flour, our sugar, our salt, and our leavening agents, our baking powder and baking soda. And this is actually similar to a quick bread. Muffins are more similar to quick breads than a cake. So if you've seen our quick bread banana bread video, you'll know the difference between the two. But just for quick terms, a quick bread uses a lot of leavening agents to give it a rise versus a regular bread, which will use yeast for a rise, so it's more biological. We're using chemical leavening agents here, and there's not as much sweetness, and it's not as like light and airy as a traditional cake. So there's a few differences between the two, but it's still it's still a delicious baked good at the end of the day. So please just whisk all your dry ingredients together, and then we're also going to flour our chocolate chips. So the reason why we do this is because when you don't want your chocolate settling in the bottom of your muffins, and in order to make sure they stay suspended in the batter, we are going to coat them with flour or the flour solution that we just mixed up, so that they stay in solution, so that the flour molecules that are on the chocolate kind of attach to the batter and help it stay suspended in the batter versus sinking to the bottom. So now we're going to move on to our next step, which is our wet portion of the batter. So here we have one egg and one egg yolk, and this is important because we're going to need these eggs to help with the emulsifying of our oil and our liquid phase. And if you've seen our scrambled egg video or any of our cake videos, you will know the emulsifying properties that eggs have. And the egg yolks have a lot of emulsifying proteins, and what this means is that they have proteins that are both hydrophobic and hydrophilic. And this means that they can attract and repel water at the same time. So this helps especially with oil, when there's oil or a fat in a recipe, because with our liquid phase, our milk phase, it helps to actually make sure everything is combined in a homogeneous or cohesive solution versus the oil separating out of the batter later. So it's important to have these eggs in here, and we're also using our buttermilk substitute recipe. If you've seen our buttermilk pancake video, you'll see the science behind this, but we're using that as our liquid phase. And so we just want to combine all of our liquid ingredients, so our vanilla, our eggs, and our buttermilk. And now we're going to go ahead and move into our next step, which is this is a little bit different than most baking recipes, but it's a technique called reverse creaming. And what we're doing here is we're actually adding our liquid oil phase. So your oils can be fats such as butters or liquid oil like we use here. And what you're doing is you're going to add your oil to your dry phase, which is going to be mostly your flour and your sugar and your leavening agents. And the reason why we're doing this is because we are trying to inhibit the gluten development in our batter. So with cakes and quick breads and things like that, you don't want a lot of gluten development, because it's not like a true traditional bread where we want it to be chewy and dense. We want these to be light and airy and moist. We don't want to overwork the batter, and it's really easy to overwork muffin batter because it's a little bit thicker. So in order to kind of combat that and to in a way ensure that we do not overmix, we are going to do something called reverse creaming. And with this, instead of creaming your fats with your sugar and then adding in your flour and everything like you normally would, we're actually going to add our fats to our flour. And by doing this, we're actually coating the flour proteins with the oil, which it coats the flour proteins and helps to inhibit their interaction with water. If you've seen a lot of our other bread and cake videos, you'll know that gluten development is due to the proteins in flour develop gluten bonds when they interact with water. And if we can inhibit that interaction with water by coating the flour proteins in oil, which repels water, then we limit the amount of gluten that can be developed. So we will still develop gluten because there is more liquid than fat in this recipe. So there is still the opportunity for the flour proteins to interact with water, but we're going to inhibit it because we're still coating a good amount of the flour proteins with the oil. So the ones that are coated with oil will not be able to interact with the water, so they won't be able to form those gluten bonds. And the less gluten bonds we form, the less dense and chewy our muffin will be. And so it helps us to not over mix our dough, or sorry, our batter. And so it really does help when you're making any kind of cakes. And we have used this previously in our pineapple upside down cake video. If you've seen that video, it helps to really ensure that your cake or your bread or whatever, your quick bread, whatever you're making, really turns out with a nice light and airy kind of texture without over mixing, and with it's almost like a foolproof way to ensure that you develop less gluten. And so we just added in our wet mixture, and like I mentioned, with that egg in there, we are able to pull in that oil with the liquid from the milk, and that helps to really emulsify the solution. So we're just going to go ahead and mix it up till we get our batter formed, and then we're going to go ahead and add in our chocolate chips. So once the batter is pretty much together and there's no dry bits left, we can go ahead and add in any mix-ins. And here we're actually going to use chocolate chips like we did, or like I mentioned earlier, we dusted our chocolate chips with the flour to help make sure that they don't sink to the bottom of the batter when they're baking. And you can do this with any mix-in. If you're using a fruit like blueberries or a nut, you can go ahead and toss them in a little bit of the flour, and that'll help them to stay in the solution of the muffin versus at the bottom. Now we're going to go ahead and fill up our muffin tins, and I went ahead and greased these tins so they're ready to go. And you want to fill them about 3/4 of the way full, or a little bit fuller if you like that kind of spillover muffin top look. You can fill them almost to the top, and they'll give you that that little bit of lift extra muffin top when you finish. So here's our muffins. This made about 11, and we're going to go ahead and pop these in the oven. So the oven temperature is going to be at 375 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're going to bake them for about 10 minutes, 10-15 minutes. So here I just wanted to show you guys kind of what the inside of our muffin is looking like, and as you can see, it baked up pretty nicely. If I filled the tin up just a little bit more, we would have gotten more of that kind of muffin top, but this is about the size I wanted, so this is good for me. But as you can see, the chocolate chips stayed with all suspended throughout the muffin, and we're going to go ahead and cut this open and take a look at the crumb. So you can see that we have a nice kind of quick breadish, cakey kind of texture. It's not too dense, and it's not too overly soft like a cupcake, and it has a nice little crumb to it. And it's nice and moist, and it's uniform, which is great. And the chocolate chips are nicely suspended throughout the batter. So here you have it. Some delicious, warm, fluffy, moist chocolate chip muffins. So make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell to stay updated on all delicious science. And let us know if you love muffins and have tried other variations or have tried the reverse creaming. Please drop us a comment and let us know. And until next time, happy baking.